What's up guys, I'm Luke and this is a SubaruONLY show. In today's episode, I'm going to walk you guys through a critical process of repairing a stripped bolt hole. That's right, a stripped bolt hole. Sooner or later, you're all going to do it. You either over-torque that sucker or you misread that torque spec and you strip the hell out of those threads. It's a huge oh shit moment. We all hate it when it happens, but it's going to happen at some point. Now, when it does happen, do not throw that block away. Do not throw those heads away. There's no reason to scrap that stuff. You can repair those threads with a cheap $5 Helicoil thread repair kit. In this video, I'm going to walk you guys through the step-by-step installation process. I'm going to give you guys some hints on how I do it. And hopefully, if you guys need to make a thread repair using one of these Helicoils, it'll be much easier and much simpler process because you have this video as a resource. Okay, so what are you going to need? Well, the first thing is you're going to need the bolt that you stripped the hole with. That's the first thing. Then you're going to need to get the right drill bit, and I'll talk about which one to select, which size. You're going to need a tap. Once you drill the hole, you're going to have to tap it, and we'll talk about that. And then you'll need the right size helicoil, and that's where we'll actually start. So basically, you have your bolt that you stripped your threads with. And on this block, I'll actually show you guys real quick which threads are stripped on this block. Let's take a closer look. Okay, the threads that I'll be repairing are the threads for this timing belt tensioner and the main bolt that's used to secure it. Basically, I'll thread it in here so you can see a little bit of what I'm talking about. There's a lot of wiggle and slop in it, and if you actually, I've already threaded in 4 or 5 threads. If you pull on it real tight, you can actually pull it right out. When I went to torque this bolt in to the factory torque settings, which are about 28 foot-pounds, I believe. I don't have the factory service manual in front of me. The bolt just actually started spinning once it got all the way in there, seated all the way down flat. So there's no threads left in here. And this is actually a steel bolt, right? These are hardened steel bolts. They're grade 8 or grade or higher usually. And they're very hard. And steel is much harder than aluminum or an aluminum alloy that most of these blocks and all these engine components are made out of. So what happens is when you torque these bolts down much higher than the factory recommendations, what happens is you don't actually strip the threads or damage the threads on the bolt. You strip the threads on the block. And because of that, we're actually going to insert an insert in the block, and we're not going to have to replace the bolt at all because there's no damage to the bolt whatsoever. Okay, so that's the bolt. It's a timing belt tensioner bolt, and I'm going to have to replace the threads that this bolt goes into. Now, the first place you start is what thread pitch and size that this bolt is. This bolt, like most of the bolts on your accessories here for your engine, is 10 by 1.25 millimeters, or M10 by 1.25 millimeters. That's the bolt size and the thread pitch. So when you go ahead and find your helicoil or purchase your helicoil kit, you're going to purchase a helicoil for the same size thread pitch that your bolt is. That way the helicoil is the right size for the bolt that you're going to actually be screwing in to hold that component. So the bolt size determines which size helicoil kit you get. Once you get the helicoil kit, you're going to have to install it. Now this helicoil is not going to be able to just be installed in the stripped threads. You're actually going to have to drill out the hole and then cut new threads that are the size of this helicoil. Now here's a quick hint for the tap you're going to have to use for these helicoils. The tap size is usually going to be about 2 sizes larger, but the same thread pitch than your bolt. So if the bolt is an M10 by 1.25 and the helicoil kit is an M10 by 1.25, your tap that you're going to use once you drill the hole is going to be M12 by 1.25. M12 is 2 sizes larger than M10, but the same thread pitch, that 1.25 thread pitch. For this helicoil kit, which is for a bolt that's an M10 by 1.25, the diameter for the drill bit I use is 3/32. However, if you end up using a different size helicoil, it'll be a different drill bit, and you can look that up in the manufacturer's recommendation, or just look it up on the internet. Okay, so here's the hole we're going to be repairing, and this is the drill bit we're going to be using to bore out that hole to a larger size before we can cut it with that tap and then insert the helicoil. However, before you just start throwing this in your drill and start cutting up a bunch of aluminum shavings, think about where all those shavings are going to go. We want to tape off the area or remove the part and put it in a bench vise so you can get a better angle with the drill and have more control when you're drilling those holes. So think about that first. That's the first thing. Where are all the shavings going to go, and how do I keep the rest of the engine clean when I start drilling this sucker and I start creating a mess? In this case, for this hydraulic tensioner thread hole, I'm actually going to remove this component and put it on my bench vise so I can drill this hole with more precision and more control. So let's go ahead and do that next. I really like to have these nut drivers. Weehaw, it's a German brand. Super high quality. I think it's like the German equivalent of Snap-on. You can get these on Amazon. They're really nice. This is a 12mm size. Makes unbolting and bolting in things, especially like when you're snugging up, much, much, much faster. Get yourself actually all the common sizes. I have a nut driver just like this, the Weehaw ones, for 14mm size, 12mm size, 10mm size. All right, that's all for that guy. So we can remove that component. All right, we've got the piece in the bench vise, and we're gonna go ahead and use that 13/32 drill bit to ream out that bore hole so we can get it ready for the new cap and then the helicoil. With a good drill bit and a good drill, that job took about 15 seconds. But take a look at how much of a mess we made and all these shavings. Imagine if that was in the engine and we didn't think about that beforehand, which is exactly why we took this sucker out, so we can make a mess on the bench and not in the engine. Okay, and clean it a little bit. Okay, and now for the tap. Whenever you're going to tap anything, you're going to want to use a little bit of lubricant on the threads of that tap, and then thread it down a little bit and back it out, thread it down a little further and back it out, thread it down a little further and back it out, and keep it lubed with oil or a cutting fluid the entire time. I'm going to use straight 30 weight oil because that will be fine on a short hole tap like this. Here's a quick tip. I like to keep my 30 weight oil in one of these ketchup containers that I got from the 99-cent store. Basically, you grab a bunch of these, use it for different fluids, mark it with a little bit of mark it with a permanent marker, and you're good to go. So this thing's lasted years and it works perfect. It's got a little top on it, and they work great for fluids in your garage, for storing fluids in your garage. So, quick tip. Now we're gonna cut these threads in this hole with this tap. First thing, put a little bit of lube on this sucker. Don't worry about getting a little bit of oil on it. We can clean up after. You don't have to go crazy or anything. Okay, and then just kind of get it lined up straight. Make sure you're perpendicular to the surface or parallel to the borehole. And the tap should kind of self-align itself because it's got a tapered end on it. And then just start cutting those taps and then back it off a little bit. And then cut it and back it off a little bit. And then cut it and back it off a little bit. You don't really need to add any more cutting fluid or lubricant for a thread that it's only this short. Alright, that's about it. This sucker's all the way through. I'll pull this out. You can kind of see why, another reason why we wanted to pull this component out, or if we're going to do it in the engine or on the head, we want to tape off everything, because this tap also creates a lot of shavings. So you can see how many shavings. That's all from cutting those threads. A little quick tip, just spray that with a little WD-40. It gets rid of all the shavings and it actually applies a rust preventative coating to all your taps and your bits and things like that. All right, it's looking pretty good. So you can see we have brand new threads in there, right? Those are M12 by 1.25. So now we're going to install the helicoil into that thread so the bolt can thread into the helicoil. Here's that helicoil. Like I said, it's an M10 by 1.25 helicoil, but that means that the inner diameter is M10 by 1.25 and the outer diameter for this one is M12 by 1.25, and that's what we cut these threads to. Another thing I'll mention is that these helicoils come in different lengths, different depths of your bore. So this one, I got this long because that's about the depth of the thread I'm cutting. But these helicoils have a little tang at the bottom that basically prevents the bolt from going any deeper than this. And you need that tang to install the helicoil down into the bore. That's what you grab a hold of to thread it into the bore. And I'll walk you through that next. But what I want to point out is that when you thread the bolt into this helicoil, the bolt's not going to be able to thread any further than the bottom of that helicoil because that little tang that's bent into the middle. Okay, let's go ahead and install this helicoil into this freshly cut thread hole. So I actually ended up making my own custom helicoil installer tool. And the way I did it was I just found a stud. This is the same M10 by 1.25 diameter thread pitch. And actually M10 diameter by 1.25 thread pitch. It's the same inner diameter and thread pitch as this helicoil. And what I did is I went ahead and I ground down a little beveled edge, as you can see right there. Maybe I can show it up to you. You can see it right there, that little beveled edge. And that is what's actually going to, I'm going to thread this portion of the stud down into the helicoil, and then this little beveled edge will catch that little tang on the bottom and will grab it so I can continue to thread that helicoil all the way down to the bottom of the bore. And that way all these helicoil threads are, in the threads of the part right here. So I'm going to actually pull this out so you can see it a little bit better from the back side. Okay, so the first thing to do is to thread this sucker in. And what would be even more trick is if I put a little cut in this side so I could use a flat blade screwdriver or a Phillips screwdriver to screw it in further. That would make this custom little installer tool even better. But I think I can do it by hand. So I'll flip it over. You can kind of see now that it's threaded down, you can see that little raised section that I cut is grabbing that little tang of the helicoil. And now I'm just going to kind of twist it. I'm going to see if I can do this at an angle so you guys can see it. Kind of working it down. It's awkward for me to hold it at that angle for you guys, but I'm going to do it. All right, there we go. And oops, you don't want it to go past. See, I popped it past. Now you want to stay on that tang. So just keep an eye on that tang and just work it down all the threads. Work it down. Just go back to your home. Just go back on down. Work it on down. So that's pretty much all the way through. Let's see where we're at on the top side. So we're still a little bit coming out on this side. And because we have a little bit of space back here, I'm just going to push it through a little further. And this helicoil is going to be a little bit deeper than necessary. And that's not going to matter. It's not going to cause it to pop out. It's not going to do anything. As a matter of fact, it'll actually hold it in there tighter probably, having a little bit sticking on this side. So what we want to do is make sure it's totally flush on this front side, because that's where the part's going to be installed, right? So I'm going to take this out. So now I can see this is totally flush. The helicoil is just installed underneath the surface right here. So you have all the threads. And now this new bolt that'll be used for the hydraulic tensioner for the timing belt can thread into this hole and will have something to bite on and won't pop out, and I can torque it down to the manufacturer's specs. This is going to work perfect, and it'll last just as long as this part was meant to last from the manufacturer. We are done with the helicoil install kit. Awesome. It looks perfect. All right, everybody, thanks for checking out the video. This was a video on helicoil installation and a bunch of tips on how to get it done the right way, and it turned into a video on how to make your custom installation tool. So I hope you found some value. I hope you enjoyed it. If you got any comments, leave a comment in the comment section. I'll definitely reply to your comment at some point. I'm trying to get to them as soon as I can, but if I take a few days or even longer, I apologize. But thanks so much for checking out the video. I hope you found some value, and share it with some friends if you think it would be some value to them too. Thanks a lot, guys. Later.